भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति. In this 31st class on this Mundaka Upanishad, we continue with the very attractive, picturesque metaphor of Omkara being like a bow and the Jiva, the mind, which is no other than the Supreme Self, but as conditioned by the Upadis, becomes as though limited. That is the arrow. The limited, which once more is never separate from the unlimited, but appearing as limited at this moment, the limited has to be the bow and has to be the arrow. Sharo hi Atma. Pranava is the bow and the target is the realization of the unlimited, the infinite. Therefore, a commentator whom I was studying the other day has made a rather an unpleasant comment for many of us. Generally, these mantras with a very picturesque metaphor, bow and arrow, somewhere else two birds, somewhere else a chariot in Kathopanishad. They are appreciated a lot, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I love Mundaka Upanishad because of that metaphor of the two birds, because of the metaphor of the bow and arrow," and so on. But that commentator made a comment in his remarks that these metaphors actually are for second level students. For the first level students, it is the precise pointer to the nature of our own existence. Those of us who will not be comfortable, who feel, oh, this is abstract, oh, this is too much logic, oh, this is going above my head, this is getting dry, and so on, according to that commentator, such people who are unable to stay on the high plateau rejoice, they get excited when these metaphors come, for the metaphors have certain aesthetic value. There is literary beauty, there is rasa in these metaphors. So let's get back the shloka, or I should say the mantra. In the Upanishads, they are called mantras. Dhanur grahitva aupanishadam mahastram sharam hi upasa nishitam sandhaita or sandadhita ayamya, pulling it backwards, tadbhava gatena chetasa Lakshyam tadeva aksharam somya vidhi. Hit the target of that imperishable truth, of that Brahman, with the arrow of your own purified mind, which will shoot, which will fly at the required high speed if placed on the bow of Omkara and then released. And we take up the second of the two mantras constituting this metaphor. Pranavo dhanuhu sharohi atma brahma tat lakshyamujyate apramatena vedhavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. A very pretty mantra indeed. Therefore, I myself take the comment of that commentator who called this a B grade mantra, with a grain of salt. For these have their own power. Technically, yes, those revelations with no metaphor, no decorations, pointing to the truth in the most plain terms. Technically, those may be the higher statements, but these are not to be looked down at. These have a great power in them too. It's almost like putting Bhakti Marga down. I think we should not make that mistake. Bhakti technically might be a bit of a packaged stuff. Jnana might be the pure stuff without any packaging. But why should we look down at packaging? If packaging helps someone move faster, it has its own very valid value. All right, so everything finally has to be understood in context. In a certain context, Jnana Marga is great. In some other context, Bhakti Marga is great. Likewise, in some context, the mantras which in plain terms define the truth. They can't really define, but they point, they reveal the truth, are great. In some other contexts, it is these mantras which give to us some very precious insights. What was called Upanishada Astra before, or Upanishada Dhanuhu, Dhanur Grahitva Upanishadam Maha is explicitly called here now Pranava. Pra means intensely. The verbal root nu means to salute, to praise, and so on. In the famous bhajan by Sri Tulsidas, Sri Ramachandra Kripalu Bhajumana, we have one word there, Naumi. Naumi Janaka Sutavaram Sri Ramachandra Kripalu Bhajumana, and so on. Naumi. Naumi is like Stutim Karomi or Namami. Namami has the root Nam and Naumi has the root Nu, and that Nu is present in Pranava. Nu becomes Nava. Stu becomes Stava. Stava, Stotra, Stuti means praise. So, what is Pranava then? The etymological definition of Pranava, Omkara, is Prakarshena Nuyate, which means Stuyate Anena Iti Pranavaha. Somebody put it in simple language. God has thousands of names, but the best one, the best of all the names that God has is Om. Prakarshena Nuyate. It is Omkara using which we do maximum justice to the glory of God, of Brahman, maximum as far as words can go. Ultimately, the glory of God is beyond words. But if any word, any sound can go the maximum, it is the sound of Om. Therefore, in all the Upanishads, in the Vedic literature, in traditional lore, in the Bhagavad Gita, everywhere, Om is prescribed. It is said even by modern teachers. Other day I came across a concise summary teaching that the popular guru, Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev, gave to a bunch of youngsters. He gave three instructions, and one of them was every day spend some time reciting Om. He too prescribes Om. Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananji, during his younger days, was seen to recite Om loudly in the mornings wherever he went around and stayed. And they used to call him Om Swami for a little while. For early morning, if somebody had hosted him, they would hear Om coming from his room. And later, too, he, of course, always honored and recommended Om. Therefore, Om is a great mystery, and Om is endorsed by Mahatmas from time immemorial. In the 20th century, we had Sri Ramakrishna, who said all the Vedas merge in Gayatri, and Gayatri merges in Om, a mystical statement. And in the 20th century, Maharshi Ramana also said the same, as you may find it in the book, in the collection Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. All the Vedas are contained in Gayatri. How? We don't know. And Gayatri in turn is contained in Om. Therefore, if any of us has the required fitness, then reciting Om, our consciousness can rise to unimaginable heights. All spiritual journey, friends, is nothing but a vertical rise of consciousness. As the founder of a well known organization in Bengaluru, Meditation and Study Circle, S. Krishnamurti, in one of his books, wrote some 4 decades ago, meditation, he said, is a vertical movement along the scale of consciousness. I like that definition. For in all other subjects, as we learn mathematics or history, engineering or medicine, law or accounts, we gather a whole lot of knowledge as is necessary for this world. But in true spirituality, and especially in meditation, something happens to us. We go higher. We look at things from a higher standpoint. Therefore, consciousness rising vertically is how S. Krishnamurti defined meditation. Then he formed the organization called Meditation and Study Circle. His daughter and son in law are running it even now. Probably they have completed almost 40 years. Every Monday and Tuesday in Bengaluru, they have a lecture on Monday in English and a lecture in Kannada on Tuesday. It has been going on. Now, of course, for the present, it's going on online. But they will come back to face meetings in some nice venue in South Bengaluru. So, Pranavam is what helps us rise higher. All the more necessary for some of us intellectuals. We go on reading books and go on talking. But if we really want to change, it's not just talking and talking. We must sit quietly. We must sit silently. For all that we talk, there should also be quiet time where that urge to just talk, urge to use the intellect, and especially go round and round in linguistic acrobatics. That is what we speakers do, we writers do. We express a thing in so many ways, using different idioms, different phrases, different clauses. Then we bring this example, that story, sprinkle some humor, and when the audiences are happy, we feel we have reached somewhere. We don't reach anywhere by making audiences happy through oratory. We should put aside our oratory and we should ourselves sit silently and say Om. Pranavo Dhanu. Take the bow of Pranava, that is Omkar, Om. Sharohi Atma. The arrow here is no other than the self. The self is a wonderful word. When it is with a lowercase s, it is the limited I. When the same English word, the self, is written with an uppercase s, it is the unlimited, unbound, and unbounded pure self. And I will again point out when I take up the Bhashya, Adi Shankara makes a very insightful statement. This Atma is the Paramatma only. Then you may wonder, how can you place Paramatma on the bow? The Paramatma, within a certain frame of reference, appears as the Jivatma. And the Jivatma is placed on the bow and is made to fly towards the target, which is Paramatma. So I call it insightful because Adi Shankara doesn't want to really accept a difference between Brahma and Jiva at any point of time. The difference is only when our understanding comes to a lower level, just as a pencil in a glass of water can be talked of as having bent. Really, it has not bent at all. There is no angle of bending of the pencil in a glass of water. But a whole lot of physics can be evolved, is already made to decide how much would be the angle if it's kept in liquid number 1, liquid number 2, liquid number 3 of different specific densities. The angle will change theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, and so on. All that science is good in a certain frame of reference. Actually, the pencil doesn't bend when you put it in liquid. Refraction is an optic illusion, as you and I know. Likewise, the Advaita Vedanta would like to maintain that in reality, no one ever becomes Jiva. Jiva is valid only in the error domain. If the error is gone, then at one go there is no Jiva. We do not say I was Jiva and on February 12 I became Brahma. You can't say that. When the realization takes place, you will see that there was no time when you were not Brahman, and there will not be any time in future too when you are not Brahma. Therefore, Atma is Paramatma, but in the frame of reference of this analogy, it is the arrow placed on the bow to be assailed. Brahma Tallakshyam. Tallakshya is a compound, Tasya Lakshyam, or uh, Tasmin Lakshyam. That Lakshya is aim, Lakshya is target, Lakshya is where one has to reach. So the destination of this whole exercise, tat is this exercise, is no other than Brahma. Apramattena Vedhavyam. This is a challenging proposal. All of us enjoy this metaphor, but if there is a certain real challenge, it is this apramada. Pramada means error, carelessness, slipping. Error is of the form of saying, well, tomorrow onwards I will be honest. Tomorrow onwards I will be hardworking. At this time, let me enjoy. At this time, let me sleep. At this time, let me do something which I know is not good. So, pramada means any kind of compromise. And you and I know it's just by deciding I'm going to be careful. It doesn't work. Sometimes sleepiness overpowers us. Sometimes lust and greed overpower us. Sometimes anger just hijacks us. All of them are pramada. We have to employ an integrated approach, not just deciding, but that decision, to be careful, has to be backed by what I call integrated approach is a, an approach where right food, right speech, right sleep, etc. are all taken care of against the backdrop of responsible speech, not to talking too much, not talking too less either, not sleeping too much, not sleeping too less either, and taking care about so many other things during the 24 hours. Then, in our contemplation, we can go very far. Otherwise, if we make spirituality a compartmentalized affair, Puja Gurudev Chinmayananji used to say, ours is not a Sunday religion, hinting at some models where you are permitted to live whatever way you like to from Monday to Friday or even Saturday. And Sunday, you go to the temple or church, mosque or Buddha Vihar and pray. So, someone like J. Krishnamurti talked about disorder in daily life. He says, your meditation is meaningless if rest of the time during the day you are indulging in all kinds of inappropriate behavior. You are cruel to somebody, you are insensitive to somebody, or you are careless about yourself. You overeat, you violate many moral laws. But then it is 6 p.m. This is my meditation time. And you say, I meditate daily at 6 p.m. He used to laugh at it. What kind of meditation is that if the way you live your day is full of contradictions? And someone like Krishnamurti mocked at all these traditional practices. Went to the extent of saying, if you live rightly, there is no need to pray, there is no need to meditate. He meant that. That's what I mean by he mocked at traditional practices. Once I asked someone who was quite advanced in understanding Krishnamurti's teachings, I said, Kabir ji, but is it not good to pray, to meditate, to do some exercises to gather energy? So Mr. Kabir, who was a wonderful source of understanding J. Krishnamurti, who is unfortunately no more now, he smiled at me and said, Chidananji, what you are saying, certain exercises to gather energy, to gain momentum, to get ekagrata, single pointedness, etc., all that will automatically happen in alert living, in mindful living. I'm giving my own words, and I truly appreciate that. In fact, having said it, let me clarify. Those teachings of someone like J. Krishnamurti are not literally against your sitting down for meditation, but they are actually against compartmentalizing. They are actually telling us that if you live conscientiously, that is, you live in line with conscience, you don't violate your own inner voice, then meditation happens. And meditation that happens is of a superior value than you look at time and say, oh, this is my time to meditate. And you are waiting for that half an hour to go because there are WhatsApp messages to be looked into, emails to be cleared, and maybe there is a show on the TV. You are so restless. So, when you decide to meditate and sit during a certain time, you know, it has a certain laughable side to it. They are true, they are right. At the same time, I for one would say that those who cannot make head or tail of this, what it is to live alertly, may jolly well try to practice so-called practice meditation, and as they evolve, as their contemplation becomes deeper, they themselves will realize that true prayer, true meditation, true spiritual exercise is not so much by following do's and don'ts. True prayer, true meditation is something that spontaneously happens. So, people who are very evolved may sit at some specific time. We don't say they should not or they would not. But more than sitting at a particular time and meditating, they go into meditation anytime and every time at the slightest stimulus. It is said that Sri Ramakrishna, he was known as Gadadhar during his younger days, went into samadhi while crossing a rice field. A young boy passing through a rice field in his village, he looked up and he saw a large number of birds flying in the sky in a beautiful pattern. And looking at it, his mind went into how wonderful God and God's creation is. And he went into samadhi and fell down. Later, people had to lift him from the paddy field, it is said. So, something like that. When there is a certain deeper understanding, various rules. This is the time for meditation. That is the place to meditate. This place has more vibrations, and another place has less vibrations. And so many gross parameters, gross aspects of spiritual practices fall off one by one. So let me conclude this digression repeating what Kabir Jayatirtha told me, which I highly value. He said, this life of attention includes everything. The necessary energy also is gathered by that mindful. He didn't use the word mindfulness, but it is very close to that. Alert living, the life of being in attention. Because in inattention, all this came by from the word apramatta, and it would be appropriate for me to say at this moment, pramada is nothing but inattention. Pramada is insensitivity to others or to ourselves. When a diabetic grabs one, not one, second, third sweet, he is so insensitive to his own body. His body might be crying at that time, don't put one more sweet into the mouth, dear. The body might be saying to personify it. But for the pleasure on the tongue, the diabetic, suppose, puts one more sweet into the mouth. Is he not cruel to himself? Or is she not cruel to herself? Why talk about cruelty to others only? Other people, animals, plants, and so on. We are many times utterly insensitive and cruel to ourselves when we talk too much or talk what should not be talked. Apriyam, asatyam, udvegakaram, ahitam, and so on. When we talk, then we are very cruel to ourselves because we are jeopardizing our own inner well being by behaving like that. All that is pramada. Adjective of pramada is pramatta. Apramattena vedavyam. So it's not enough if you very much appreciate this metaphor, bow and arrow. Please contemplate. Contemplate with great care. Live all your waking hours with gentle care, neither whipping yourself up by condemnation or by patting on the back, being non judgmental, but being understanding. Understand where you slipped, but don't blame yourself. Understand where you did something rightly. Don't feel proud about it. I am meditating so well today. I don't think anybody in this neighborhood meditates so well. Suppose you pat yourself like that. When one morning you meditate or whatever time, you know, that is called judgmentalism. Meditate with no comment about it. If your mind wanders, notice it, but don't start blaming yourself. I will never be able to pray or meditate. This wandering mind has always been my problem, and today it is wandering more. Who asked you to give this running commentary? Mind is wandering, and you are further sprinkling comments on it. Take care. Be less judgmental. Understand the problem and look at it silently. Then change will take place without your fretting and fuming. So, apramattena vedhavyam. Once more, vedhavyam means pierce. One has to pierce, one has to penetrate that target, and like an arrow, as it hits the target, becomes one with the target. Sharavat, like the arrow, tanmayaha bhavet. Tanmaya, full of that only. The arrow is no more away, apart. It is one with the target. This is explained beautifully by Bhashyakara Sri Shankaracharya. Yaduktam dhanuradi taduchyate. What was said in third mantra is now being elaborated. Pranavaha omkaraha dhanuhu yata ishwasanam. A bow in Sanskrit is also called Ishwasana. Ishu means arrow and asana is the seat. After all, an arrow is placed on the bow for the purpose of shooting. Otherwise, it is in the quiver. That's a different story. But when you want to send the arrow towards a target, it has to be placed. The bow is its seat. So, Ishoho asanam, Ishwasanam, Lakshye Sharasya Pravesha Karanam. But for the bow, how would the arrow go and enter or hit the target? Lakshye Pravesha Karanam Dhanuhu Eva. So the bow makes it possible. Tata Atma Sharasya, coming from the analogy to the theme proper, it is said, if the Atma, our own individuality, is the arrow, Akshare Lakshya Pravesha Karanam. What could cause this individual self to merge in the Supreme Self, which is called Akshara, the imperishable? It is Om. Om can facilitate it. Om is thus called the greatest alambana. Om, stay with Om. Satya Sai Baba, I have heard, advised devotees, start your morning with reciting Om 21 times. Recite it for just those 5 or 7 minutes. Be free of any other plans or worries, etc. Recite Om and listen to that sound. Keep away thoughts for those 5 or 7 minutes. It can be indeed a great exercise for not only spiritual goals, even for emotional health, for mental health, for physical health. Multiple are the benefits. Multiple are the benefits of very many spiritual practices if done with certain maturity. In an immature way, when somebody does spiritual practice, the immature way implies she or he is doing mechanically to impress somebody or to keep her own or his own conscience at peace because she or he had promised mother or father or somebody for their sake. I've told my father I will do daily, so I'm doing. So that is all immature ways. You haven't found love in your heart for that practice. The mature level is whether a father or mother or guru has told you or not, you have seen the beauty of the spiritual practice. Therefore, you are eager to do, you look forward to doing, and you enjoy doing. Well, all this requires divine grace, no doubt. Pranavena hi abhyasyamanena samskriyamanaha tadalambanaha apratibandhena akshare avatishtate. The individual self, our own mind and intellect, samskriyamanaha, being purified. Samskriyamanaha is, as I translated, a present passive participle. Being refined, being subjected to a certain purification. How? Pranavena abhyasyamanena. Pranava being practiced. There also a present passive structure is used. Somebody practicing Omkara is active voice. Omkara being practiced by somebody. That is what I mean by passive voice. Pranavena hi abhyasyamanena has that passive structure which has its own charm, its own impact. Yatha dhanusha astaha ishuhu lakshye. Ishuhu, the arrow, astaha, thrown. Asyati means to throw. Someone throws. Asyati. Dhanusha astaha, with the bow, we throw the arrow with the help of the bow. It goes very far. Ishu lakshye lakshyam prati yata gacchati lakshye avatishtate, goes and hits and stays there. Likewise, can our mind go towards that supreme Brahman, hit it in a manner of saying, and stay in Brahma? Not everybody's cup of tea, admitted, but the possibility excites us. Ataha pranavaha dhanuhu iva dhanuhu. Omkara is not a bow, but it's like a bow. Dhanuhu iva. Sharohi Atma, I refer to this several times. As Adi Shankara says, Upadi Lakshanaha Paraha Eva. Paraha Eva means it is the Supreme Self only. For heaven's sake, don't believe that there is one Paramatma up there and here is this miserable Jivatma. There are no two. At no point of time there are two, but the erroneous perception makes us believe that there are 200, 2000, 2,000,000, 2 billion jivas. That is how the error domain operates. It appears that there are many, but in a manner of saying, we say at no time, but time itself is part of that appearance. We are so used to regarding time and space as unquestionably true, but the Vedanta says time and space are questionable. Their truth is questionable. All right. It is said, Upadi Lakshanaha Paraha Eva Jale Suryadivat Iha Pravishtaha. Just as 100 buckets with water will show 100 images. Jale Pravishtaha Suryaha Iva. Sarva Bauddha Pratyaya Sakshitaya. Don't mistake the word Bauddha here as anything to do with Buddha. Bauddha here means related to Buddhi. Bauddha Pratyaya means the thought forms in our intellect. In various thought forms in the intellect, it appears that here is a seeker, over there another seeker, there is a sadhaka here, there is a sadhika here. Somebody is advanced, somebody is way behind, somebody is guru, somebody is shishya. All this appears to be true. They are all Bauddha pratyayas, and the sakshi of the Bauddha pratyaya, buddhistita pratyaya, is the paraha atma. Saha sharaha iva swatmani eva arpitaha akshare brahmani. So, on one level below, we do talk about the journey. The arrow started here, went and hit over there, here, there, now, then we talk. But actually, as the Bhashya says here, Swatmani eva arpita. It is offered not somewhere else, it is offered into yourself, in yourself. You are the beginning, you are the end, you are the way also. In the Gita, we have the shloka Aham Adischa Madhyancha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. We have the expression. Is it the same shloka which Ramana Maharshi selected? Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Stitaha Ahamadischa Madhyancha Bhutanam Antayevacha. Yes, the 20th verse of 10th chapter. Of all the 700 verses, Sri Ramana Maharshi on a certain occasion selected this 10.20 as the one that is the most excellent one for his own reasons. Aham Atma Gudakesha. Sri Krishna says, I am the pure self in all living beings. Sarva Bhuta Shayastitaha. And second line of it says, Aham Adishcha. I am the beginning, I am the middle, and I am the end. I believe in the Bible there is some statement. Jesus Christ says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light. So interestingly, he also says, I am the way too. I am the one to be reached, and I am the way also. So the way, that is the road, the destination, and why leave the traveler? The traveler, the path to be traveled, the destination to be reached, all of them are different on a certain plane of consideration. That's what we call avidya bhumi. Whereas in vidya bhumi, all of them are one. Swatmani eva arpitaha akshare brahmani ataha brahma tat lakshya muchyate. Brahma is that goal. I interpreted earlier as tasya laksham, but Shankara says tat lakshyam. He doesn't go for Shashti Vibhakti. Brahma is that target. I earlier interpreted in a freestyle. Brahma is the target of that process. Of is this Shashti Vibhakti. But Bhashya doesn't give that sense. It's okay. Some small differences, I'm sure Adi Shankar also would not mind because it doesn't really interpret the main Siddhanta differently. Just some less important aspect of the sentence. Brahma tat lakshya muchyate. Lakshya iva manasamaditsubihi atmabhavena lakshyamanattvat. Not only in the metaphor of an arrow going and hitting the target, but laksh has the meaning of keeping in mind. Lakshya means pay attention to something or think of something as, wow, how nice that is. So you fancy something. You see a wonderful car in the showroom and you fancy that. One day I'm going to buy that. A lot of young people these days dream of buying a Tesla. Some have done. You know, other day I got a picture of three youngsters. All of them bought a Tesla each, and they posed for a photograph with their three Teslas and three young men. All they need is a companion by their side. All three were unmarried at that moment. But Tesla is their companion now. So, a few months before, maybe a year before, these three young men had looked at the Tesla in the showroom and fancied it. To think of it as Shankara says, Manas Samaditsubihi. The Samaditsu for Sanskrit lovers is a interesting word. Samaditsu is once more what is called Sannanta, desiderative. Someone who wishes to gather her own mind, bring it to a single point. Wishes to. Just as Chikirshu means one who wishes to do. Jijnasu means one who wishes to know. Pipasu means one who wishes to drink. Bubukshu means a hungry person, one who wishes to eat. Mumukshu is one who wants to get liberated. So one wishes to, wants to. So here is Samadhitsu, one who wishes to collect one's thoughts, concentrate, bring peace within oneself. You and I know how difficult it is. Sometimes we are tired and we try to rest, and the mind doesn't stop. We say to our mind, "Oh, my dear mind, for half an hour, shut up." But the mind says, "What will I do later? What will I do? What did I do yesterday?" You are jumping from one thought to another associated thought. So you neither are fresh enough to get up and work, nor is your attempt at having rest successful because the mind is not at rest. You lie on the bed at night or afternoon, whenever. Oh, what a terrible condition. And how nice it is if we find somebody just in 2 minutes, some people go to sleep and are refreshed within a few minutes and are back to work. So there is some kind of things falling in place. Anyway, mana samadhitsubihi, samadhim ichubihi, atma bhavena lakshyamanatvāt. Brahma, like I gave the example of these young men, or it could be young girls, fancying a Tesla or some other expensive car. Here, these spiritual sadhakas fancy that Brahmic state, that contemplation, where they no more look at themselves as the individual entities, where there is a intuitive grasp of their own vastness. In fact, a while ago, I shared with you how Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev, he's not a Vedantin, but once in a while he makes wonderful statements. And he has a certain unique flavor, that is, some originality. He makes some statements which obviously are the result of his own, inspiration, not borrowed from this or that book. So a young lady shared with me what she received from Sadhguru in the form of a crisp advice. There were 3 points. One of them I quoted a while ago. He asked these young people, recite Om every now and then and gather your mind. That was one. Another he said was even more amazing. I have never heard that from any other, though finally nothing new really. But he said it this way. He said, I'm putting it in my own words now, think of yourself as responsible and having a duty towards all. Why not I read that? I saved it right away. Right, I will. It's a very beautiful statement. And I read it twice and then I saved it. Let me read. Okay. I clicked on the wrong one. 1 minute. Here it is. Okay. Think of this statement by Sadhguru, very thought provoking. He said to these young people, my responsibility, think of it this way, he said, my responsibility towards everything is limitless. Take the statement. My responsibility, the seeker is asked to think about it that way. My responsibility to everything and everybody is limitless. Very strange because ordinarily we talk about I must know my responsibilities and just do them, save time for sadhana. That kind of thinking goes on. But here comes Jaggi Vasudev with a out of the way statement. You have limitless responsibility towards everything, and it means towards everybody. I deeply appreciated it because that is Vedanta. In the Vedanta, you are not encouraged to look at yourself as limited. On the contrary, you are asked to look at yourself as Brahma. And if you are Brahma, if you are something way beyond your body, mind, and intellect, how can there be any limits? How can you say, I have some responsibility towards my family, Once that is over, I am going to full spirituality. There's some problem with that kind of outlook. If you really understand Vedanta, the so called your family and the so called other families, the whole world is intimately related with you. The logistics is different, whether you can really go and help everybody. No one can do it. But it is a bhava, it is a spirit, it is an availability in spirit, it is a kind of inclusiveness without distinction of caste or creed, gender or color of skin or sick or health or you it is, I would not elaborate more, not needed. You find yourself the seat of some kind of ineffable, indescribable love. And how nice he said to these youngsters who did a online course. At the end of it, he gave this advice. Think of yourself as having responsibility in a limitless measure towards all. Very, very original thought, but I connect it this way. Atma bhavena lakshyamanattvat brahma atra lakshyam uchyate. So you and I, initially we have to protect our time, protect our resources. We should not put our hands into too many things and mess up our life. We should know what is our duty, what is none of our business. Avoid that, stick with duty. All that is okay. But as our contemplation goes higher, as there is antakarana shuddhi, we break all those barriers. We arrive at a state of consciousness where nobody is other. All are our people. Palestinians also are our people. Jewish people are also our people. People anywhere and everywhere are our people. So that kind of bhava, that is Brahma bhava. When you contemplate upon Brahma, you do not disown anybody. Whether you actually are able to feed a lot of people, educate a lot of people, or cure people, that's a different issue. You will do whatever is possible. But in your heart, think of it. If there is a certain owning anyone who is suffering, oh, I wish I could help him. If that spirit, if that intention, if you aspire to wipe the tears of somebody crying in Rwanda or crying in some distant country in South America, you feel, I wish I could help him. Then you are close to this Brahma Chintana because Brahma does not disown anybody. Brahma is included in all. So some of the sentences in Shankara Bhāshya can become launch pads for a lot of wonderful sattvic thinking. Tatra evam sati apramattena bahya vishaya upalabdhi trishna pramada varjitena. In summary, all error that you and I commit is nothing but some form or the other of Bahya Vishaya Upalabdhi Trishna. In Buddhism, they call it Tanha. Tanna, I think. Tanna. Trishna becomes Tanna, not Tanha. Tanna. This is some Pali or Prakrit or something. In Buddhism, you have so many words which are some distorted form of Sanskrit. So, Buddha talked about that Tanna, how in human life, at every phase, we are driven by some thirst for power, thirst for name and fame, thirst for sense pleasure. Some thirst or the other really makes our life miserable. And it is essentially Bahya Vishaya Upalabdhi. We want to get something from outside, and that becomes Pramada. Then there is error. The diabetic, however much Vedanta he might have studied, as one gulab jamun he puts in the mouth, he comes to the conclusion beyond any doubt that happiness, let the Upanishads say anything, but at this moment, Happiness is in one more gulab jamun. So Bahya Vishaya Upalabhi Trishna. So he says, I'm giving a short holiday to my Vedanta. Takes one more and puts it into the mouth. Pramada. Right? Pramada Varjita is Apramatta. Sarvato Viraktena. 999 of you and me, those who listen and those like me who speak, are not Virakta enough. And Upanishad will be truly successful, as Shankara says here, if someone is Virakta. Virakta means having true Vairagyam. You and I enjoy, and you and I pass through phases where we really feel I don't need anything. But after a little while, it turns into the opposite. We want everything. Good food, good clothes, good everything. All, all kinds of desires rush in us and pramada takes place. But one rare soul, viraktena jitendriyena, one who has conquered his or her senses, ekagra chittena. As I mentioned before, certain advanced schools of thought have this view that if we are watchful every moment, that watchfulness brings to us ekagrata. A separate upasana is not necessary. Traditional view is you must do various upasanas. Whatever, ekagra chitta, single pointed, vedhavyam, pierce, hit the target. Tad vedanat, tad vedanat urdhvam. Following that piercing, what happens? Sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Just as the arrow becomes one with the target, yata sharasya lakshya ekatmatvam phalam bhavati. The result of good shooting, a good archer is able to hit in such a way that the arrow hits the bull's eye, they call it, the bull's eye, and stays there. Probably in the best case, vertically. Otherwise, with a little bend, whatever, but hits the bull's eye. Yata sharasya lakshya ekatmatvam phalam bhavati. That is the desirable result. Tata Shankara once more says beautifully. Here it is not exactly going somewhere, reaching something, holding something. On a deeper level, to be more precise, Bhashyakara says, it is actually Dehadi Atma Pratyaya Tiraskarana. It's the ruthless negation of I am the body idea. Dehadishu Atma Pratyaya, the idea I am the body. When we see a photograph where we two are there in a group, we look at how we look, and if we look quite good, we are very happy. It's a good photograph. I look so good in that, and so on. For time immemorial, we have identified with this body, with the image of the body, with the photograph of the body, even with the name. If our name appears somewhere, how we smile. That gold medal winner, he has my name. Today is on the front page. But he is not you. Doesn't matter. My name. So we feel happy. This is called Atma Pratyaya. But Atma Pratyaya Tiraskarana. Nothing negative about it, but there is just a mature distancing between the true sense of I and any of these name and form. Akshara ekatmatvam phalam apadayet ityartha. Therefore, Akshara ekatmatva. There is Akshara Tattva only, and I as separate do not exist. I am one with that Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi is an assertion that Brahma alone is. It is in no way some kind of superiority that a seeker may feel about himself. I am Brahman and others are not. That would be utter distortion of Advaita Vedanta. The realization Aham Brahmasmi is of the nature of God alone is. Therefore, you, I, he, she, dog, cat, all are God only. Therefore, I am God meaning God alone is the implication. Om Namah Paramarshibhyo Namaha Paramarshibhyah.